Welcome to the stream. And as you can see, everybody is welcoming you in that chat right there. So this is Mike's first time doing a live stream. We did a little practice one a couple days ago. I think it went well. And now we're doing it here live. And you guys are all here watching. And as you can see, there's a ton of you. Vincent, he's here. What's up? What's up? What's up? Gig, what's going on? So how I like to start these off usually is just the chat goes wild, as you can see. They welcome you in here, and then more or less just they don't know why you're here. So explain more or less who you are, what you do, and what this product of the ProGuard is.
Yeah, hey, welcome everybody. It's good to be with you guys today, and it's a pleasure to get a chance to share a little bit about our technology that we have here for the cannabis industry. My name's Mike D'Ambra. My company is Innovative Solutions, and we're based out of San Diego. And what we do is we provide an air purification system. We call it biosecurity. Basically, we try to help cultivators solve some of their major problems. So those problems could be anything from preventing mold, preventing powdery mildew, bacteria, any kind of pathogen issues. Our technology is very effective at actively sanitizing a room in real time, 24/7, while people or plants are active. And we can help cultivators really just kind of be a real effective piece of their IPM, their preventative strategy to grow better, healthier plants, increase yields. And so as we're going on here, we'll discuss some of our products and technology, and hopefully get you some information that might be helpful for what you're doing.
Awesome.
And just would love to answer or get you any information I can, but I'll hand it back to you and let you take it from here, and we can answer any questions you want to go through.
Yeah. Awesome. So I've got about 18 questions here. Just a couple questions that I know we went over, and I know that the chat here would enjoy. I'm extremely interested in your product. Anybody that comes on TBL are people who I want to learn from. I want because either the product that they saw I'm extremely interested in, and I feel like the best info comes from people who are obviously either selling the product, making the product, or using it every single day. Sometimes it's hard to get the correct info over text, so it's nice to do these little interview live streams, right? So like what I mentioned earlier, what I do is I bring industry closer to community, aka the consumers. You're the industry, we're the community, and welcome to the consumers here in chat. So one question I had, actually looking over your website, I noticed that you guys had cannabis and commercial spaces. What other industries are you guys in?
Yeah, so we work in really any type of industry. Our background from about 15 years ago was in other regulated industries. So a lot of food safety, biotech, any type of senior home, assisted living, schools, any type of place where they were primarily looking to, and a lot of our background was in health and safety.
Okay.
So schools, offices, places. So we would help them disinfect environments that would help reduce illnesses and infections and diseases in hospitals. So that was our beginning. That was our commercial roots. And we had a lot of years doing that very successfully around the world. And then about 9 years ago is really when we transitioned into indoor cultivation. It started out with organic produce growers in Southern California, which then obviously transitioned into cannabis. So yeah, our background is pretty wide and varied, but now we focus really 100% of our efforts on the cannabis industry.
I like when you just said the organic, and we've had issues up here in Canada for a while with at the very beginning of legalization, it was hard for organics to pass because of the very, very strict guidelines they had. It's changed now. I think in 2018, it's changed a little bit, but systems like this would have been awesome for a lot of people to, if they were, the education was out there, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So you said, yeah, you're mainly in the cannabis now, which is awesome because that's exactly what we're here for. Is it safe for all stages of plants? So you can use it in the nurseries, you can use it in, like, say, tissue culture labs, stuff like that, all the way up to flower?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got different type of units for different sizes and different environments, but we definitely recommend the plants or the technology can be used to help pathogen prevention in all stages, clone rooms, in the nurseries, veg, flower, dry. And quite honestly, our theory is anywhere where there's people, plants, or some type of processing going on, and the technology can be very effective because a lot of people they focus on just flour or when they think they're going to get powdery mildew.
Hmm.
What we have seen and what we know from our background in biotech is a lot of times people are the number one transporters of the pathogens. So even in areas where the plant is not growing and you've already harvested, and maybe you're just doing some processing work,
Hmm.
or maybe it's in a laboratory, and they're doing some type of extractions. Any type of movement from people, what we have found is it actually elevates the level of pathogens in a room. So the whole idea is that you're never going to have a completely sanitized environment, a sterile environment. It's just
Hmm.
not really possible. But the goal is to minimize contamination and minimize any kind of spread and the risk of spread. So it's all about control and minimization of problems. And so a lot of people do overlook those beginning stages and post harvest stages, but we always recommend people, plants, or processing going on. Our technology can make a huge difference.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And the one thing that's different about yours is it's active, or is it a passive? What's the difference between active and passive?
Well, it's a huge difference. Ours is active, and I can show you something on our screen.
Okay. Okay. Let me
Um,
switch over there here. Okay, we're there.
so, what our technology does, it basically, I'll go back a little bit more here. So we use two different processes with our sanitization. One of them is what we call a photocatalytic process. It was actually developed by NASA about 30 something years ago. And so
Okay.
what it does is it converts the moisture in the air, which is humidity, and it makes a sanitizing solution. So if you think about it, the room is full of oxygen and humidity, which is hydrogen. So we use a UV bulb inside of our air purifier,
And
this
that's a
cell. This is,
UVC.
yes, it is.
Okay.
But it's really used in a different process than most UVC. All we're
Hmm.
trying to do is create an energy source. That energy source from that light radiates on this honeycomb cover, which is coated with titanium dioxide and other catalytic material. So what happens is as air passes through the machine,
Hmm.
that catalytic reaction occurs and it restructures the air, which is oxygen, and humidity, which is hydrogen. And it basically puts those molecules together so that we form a hydroperoxide vapor, so to speak, a dry vapor. So now
Wow.
that out of the machine, the vapor comes out or those molecules, and now it's going to sanitize your environment. So um, if you can see the screen,
Hmm.
it'll show hydroxyls, hydroxides, superoxides.
Yeah,
It's not a
hydroperoxide.
spray. We're not loading the room up with a spray or a chemical. It's taking what's already in your air, and now it's restructuring those molecules
Hmm.
so that now it's actually a sanitizer. So to go to your question, it is an active system because when those molecules come out of the machine, now that air is activated and those H2O2 and hydroxyls are floating and flying through your environment.
Hmm.
And now they're killing spores on the plant surface, on the light ballast, on the benches, doorknobs, anywhere that technology is moving, it's killing pathogens.
Can you
And
can
it's
can you be in the room while it's doing this, like actively working while it's
absolutely
doing this?
Absolutely. That's the good thing about it is it's safe. It's totally organic. It's not like a lot of people, if they are familiar with hydrogen peroxide, they're usually like loading that room up with like a gas,
Hmm.
almost like a fog.
Yeah.
And so in those environments, they exceed what would be the EPA and OSHA limits for a safe environment. Very effective at maybe killing pathogens, but you gotta have probably like a fogging machine, and you got to be evacuated for hours.
Hmm.
Our technology is just putting out such a low level of H2O2 and ionization and hydroxyls that it's well below EPA OSHA limits for occupied spaces. So we can put our technology, like I said, in schools,
Mm-hmm.
in a senior center, in homes. You know, we have different products for homes. So yeah, completely safe for people, plants, and pets.
You
So
mentioned
it's
different products for homes, and I actually have a question here. I noticed that you have an HVAC system. It looks like where you would cut a hole in like your cold air return, and it would install in there almost. Is that different than the ones that go in the green room? Oh, sorry, the grow rooms.
no, same technology. So
Okay.
the difference is on those, they do use your supply air. So in a home, you could put that in your airstream, your plenum, your furnace, whatever system you have.
Hmm.
The air passes through that photocatalytic process, and it sends it now down your air ducts, distributing it into your rooms. So those are really effective. Like I'll give you an example. We used to use that a lot of those units in homes, but also in commercial environments like, say, daycare, a school, a senior home. And what we would see in testing, they would find that sometimes we would reduce illnesses like
Yeah.
flu virus
Okay.
by 60 to 75%
Because it's always
because
in
it's
the air,
sent
killing all of the viruses that could be floating around on everything, right?
on everything. Doorknobs. I mean, you can't kill a flu virus on a doorknob with a filter up in your a HEPA filter.
No.
Um, but our technology, because it's sending those molecules out into the air,
Hmm.
it's actually anywhere it's touching, it's killing those pathogens. And then when it kills the pathogen, it goes right back to water vapor and oxygen. So it goes to its original state. It's not leaving a residue or film or some kind of, it's a vaporized sanitizer
Hmm.
that goes back to its natural organic state of oxygen or hydrogen.
How long do these filters and lights and everything last in there? Like, what's the maintenance required on these?
So these units, they can last for many years. We've got people using them for almost 10 years now, and they work great.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, so they're made to last.
Hmm.
But there's a couple of filters. The filters, they're about $5 a piece. You swap them out after every run. They start getting a little dirty from contaminants in the air and um, different things that it captures. And then internally, that photocatalytic cell that I was showing you earlier,
Hmm.
that's the main component. That's the main
Okay.
sanitizer. Every year, roughly about every 12 months, maybe a little longer, we
Okay.
just swap out that component. When you swap out that component, you're refreshing your machine,
You're doing like a
and
refurbish of the machine, or more or less,
you're
keeping it.
bas- yeah, you're basically regenerating the full capacity of the unit. Other than that, it's a plug, set it and forget it kind of solution.
Awesome, awesome. Is there anything that you have to like say open it up and go in there and vacuum or anything like that? If it gets, does it get dusty or anything like that in there? Is it like say like
Uh,
a job that maybe a grow room guy might have to do, a grow room technician would have to do weekly or something?
yeah, well, when you do the maintenance, it's pretty quick and easy. You just
Okay.
pop the lid off, and when you swap out those filters, there may be a little bit of buildup in there,
Okay.
from just airborne stuff. You just wipe it off.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a few minutes, but overall, the process is just minutes. It's not very technical. If a lot of people, we have large customers, we have small customers. We work with some of the largest in the industry, and we work with a lot of home growers. You don't have to get an electrician or a professional to come out there. It's usually a couple of screws, lift the
Okay.
lid off, get a cloth and wipe it down. But it's that
Awesome.
simple.
It's just plugs into a normal outlet.
Yeah, basically, depending on which unit we have, it might be 2 or 4 screws. It mounts on a wall in a bracket that we provide,
Cool.
and you plug it into 110, and it's up and running in minutes.
Very cool. Very cool. Going back to the humidity too, because it's on the normal plug thing is important because you could say hook it up to a generator or a battery or anything like that, and say if you had a brownout or the power goes out or whatever, you could have this system running on a battery to keep your grow rooms protected more or less when there's no power. Because it seemed if it's on just it seems they don't use very much power, right?
It's amazing. They only use about 20 to 25 watts of energy, so it's like
Really?
it's like a light bulb in your bathroom.
Oh my gosh. 20 to 25 watts.
Yeah, it's people are shocked. A lot of times when we work with large facilities, especially like a greenhouse that may
Mm-hmm.
not have, they can't just pop a wall outlet in. Um, some of these greenhouses we work with are 100, 150,000 square feet, so they might need 20 or 40 of these units in a large greenhouse bay times however many they have. So in their mind, they're wondering, oh man, how's this going to impact our electrical? We're out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have easy access. When we tell them it's about 20 to 25 watts, they're blown away. It doesn't really add hardly anything to their power usage.
You could run that
It's
off a
very
solar
minimal.
panel almost. At 20 to
Oh,
25
yeah.
watts, you could run that pretty much right off the grid. And because you were saying earlier that it works better as the humidity increases, right? So if you ever
Yeah.
get to a point, like if you are in an emergency state, a lot of the times the first thing that goes is the humidity increases, right? So it's
That's right.
interesting.
In fact, I've got a slide on my screen.
Oh, okay, let me switch over. Yep.
It's related to the humidity.
Okay.
And, one of the things I mentioned, the photocatalytic process, which makes us so different, is we're using the moisture in the air. So in some regard, humidity is needed, obviously, but it's also a big part of the problem. It's controlling humidity to reduce mold or mildew. So typically, a lot of people, um, that's a lot of their problem is the control of the humidity. But on our slide here, the relative humidity on the levels, they're down below.
Mm-hmm.
Vertically, this is the output of the sanitization of the machine. So let's say I'm just picking a number, 50% humidity.
Hmm.
The technology is creating a ton of sanitization. It's very effective.
Just under
And it's
2
fighting,
million.
yeah, it's fighting off mold and mildew pressure in a great way. Let's say you want to go to 60 or 70%. Now, obviously, the higher the humidity, you're creating a friendlier environment for mold and mildew to
Mm-hmm.
um, to
Like a
thrive
like
in.
a nursery, the veg rooms, your mother rooms,
Yes,
right?
yes. Or if you're running VPD, right? Or if you
Yep.
just want to push those limits, the higher the humidity, there's always the higher risk of contamination, which a lot of people are very afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
But with our technology, the higher the humidity, we're able to create a higher concentration of sanitization. There's more moisture, we can convert more moisture into the sanitization. So really what we're doing is we're helping mitigate and fight off what normally would be extra mold and mildew pressure so that you could run at a higher threshold without the
Mm-hmm.
higher risk. And we hear it all the time, that especially smaller growers, they don't always have control of their humidity.
Yeah.
They're really, uh, they're really kind of, it's dictated by their environment where they live. If they're up in the Northeast or, where you're at up in the north there, your humidity is going to be a lot different than mine in San Diego.
Yeah, ours is like a like it's like a heavy humidity up here. When you go outside and it's 28 and it's high humidity, it feels like you're hitting a brick wall when you go outside. It's so
Yeah,
wet.
it is. It's like walking into a sauna. And
Yeah.
so in that environment, you're obviously got more challenges. But if our technology is pumping out the sanitization every second, it's constantly fighting off what is trying to develop in that room, which is going to always be mold and mildew. And so that's how we can help growers. We can help them manage their environment, even when they are pushing the thresholds, whether it's intentional or accidental. I mean, we had a customer up in Michigan, really well-known guy on Instagram. I mean, he's a fantastic grower and he's won awards. And, I'm sure a lot of your viewers would know who he is. But he lost his power to his facility for over six
Oh, the
hours. He
worst.
had no humidity. His dehues were out. His lights were out for over 6 hours, and he was at over 95% humidity. He was at deep
Wow.
flower. He was weeks away, just like a couple of weeks away from harvest. He thought for sure he lost everything. He told me the story when they went into the facility, completely black. The floors were it was like a swamp, puddles.
Oh,
The
just
walls were
because so much
sweating.
condensate. Yeah, sweating. Yeah.
It was like a jungle. He said the only breaker that didn't go out was the one that was running his fans and the ProGuard unit in his room. He said when he got everything up and on again to power, and he got everything dialed in, he thought he was going to lose everything. He said he didn't have any mold, he didn't have any mildew.
Wow.
But what was really key, and this is what blew him away. 2 weeks later, when he went in and he took his flower in for testing, his microbial testing in Michigan, he got his lowest microbial scores ever, and it was the first time he'd ever used our technology. So he'd used it over the course of a couple, or he hadn't used our technology for years, and he had a baseline on his test results, so he knew what his scores were. He got his lowest scores ever, even through a total catastrophe. And you know, I'm always honest with people.
Mm-hmm,
We're
mm-hmm.
not a silver bullet. We're not the save all solution. It's so many variables you got to control.
100%.
Um, in that scenario, we basically were pumping out so much sanitization. We were basically fighting off what was trying to be a major
It
outbreak.
was a big war, and because, like you were saying, with the chart that we can see here, it was probably at that 80 to 90% humidity,
Yeah,
maybe even more. You're up to 4 million, 4.5 million, and
yeah. And so
that's crazy. So this would work
yeah,
really
and
well in like a greenhouse space, right?
correct. So, we work with a lot of greenhouses, a lot of big ones. In fact, we work with some that are in areas like South America where, it's kind of a, a jungle climate in some
Yeah.
regard, very, very high humidity. Some of those facilities are not your high tech, hybrid, dehumidifiers in there and controlling things. It's just straight greenhouse. So they are subject to whatever that humidity is that day. And we can help them dramatically. Like, obviously, they have to do a lot of things, but with this one variable that we can help with, we can make a big difference. And we've had people show us test results and studies that they've done where they've shown that rooms that they've used our technology in over the years, typically they get about a 10% higher yield. It's not that we help the flower grow bigger, better,
Hmm. Hmm.
but we reduce maybe the amount of contamination that happens to the point where they have a lower loss. They have lower inputs, lower spraying amounts, lower man hours,
Yeah, so
and
because a lot of these IPM sprays they're expensive. They're not the cheapest part of your grow. They're more usually the expensive part. And if you can limit the amount of sprays, you can limit the amount of labor, like you said, on spraying, which is usually again, gotta spray the top, gotta spray the bottom, gotta spray the stalks, gotta spray all the soil. You gotta the walls. It's a big labor intensive job. So something that is only at 20, 25 watts, such low amperage. Yeah, no brainer. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I think what they found is in that study, which we didn't know they were doing this study. It was really kind of nice because people have asked us before, what's the ROI? What's the return on investment? If I buy one of those units and it's $1,100 or so, uh, and some of these guys are big, so they
Hmm.
have to buy a lot, and their executives are saying, how do we know it's going to work, and how do we know we're going to get our money? What these guys did over the course of about 5 years, they were doing analytics that we had no knowledge of. They just shared it with us. They had used it in over, it was close to about a quarter of a million square feet of cultivation in different
Wow.
facilities. And they found that 10% higher yield in the rooms that were using it, the units paid for themselves in the first harvest. I mean, that 10% loss that they didn't have paid for the couple of $1,000s of units in their,
Exactly.
their commercial room. So it was really a no-brainer for them. And that's why we've worked with that specific company for about 8 years. But they have a bunch of scientists on their team, so they always do testing. And
Hmm.
we were just blown away by the results because they put a lot of effort into accumulating that data.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. This I was just thinking here too. Anytime I go into a facility around here, there's always that like locker room where you got to get your gowns and you got to get the hairnets.
Yeah, yeah.
One of these units in those rooms. We make sure that
We,
that
we
rooms is that where you see them in those rooms too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the places that actually have that kind of requirement, some of these facilities, we've had the privilege of being in some pretty nice facilities in Canada, the U.S., and so yeah, they have the changing room. They're putting on their scrubs, so to speak, or they have air showers. Some of them have an air shower where you walk in and you're getting sprayed with a air from every
Mm-hmm.
direction.
Mm-hmm.
But any area like that, we definitely recommend they can put a unit in there. And
Very
it's
cool.
basically constantly, because you think about it, you walk into that room, a lot of these guys and girls, they're coming in from their own facilities.
Hmm.
And who knows what they're, and that's what we hear a lot. Who knows what they're bringing with
Well, it's a
them?
lot of the locker rooms too, so who knows what's in the lockers? And when the lockers open, when you open it up, here comes all the spores flying out of it, right?
It's a great point.
Right?
Well, to that point, corridors, hallways.
Hmm.
People think, oh, I don't need anything there. We've actually got testing, microbial testing, where companies have done air samples, swab surface samples, and the corridors, the hallways, the changing rooms, they're sometimes the dirtiest in
Hmm.
the facility because in your grow room when you harvest, you're gonna reset that room. You're gonna scrub, clean, reset everything, get it down to a clean environment for the next set of plants. You
Hmm.
don't do that in a changing room.
Yeah,
You don't do that in a
exactly.
hallway. You
Exactly.
just think, oh, it's just a hallway. It's just benches and a locker, and people are shocked, because they're just going with what they visually would think and
Exactly.
see. But our biotech background shows us that where there's people, pathogens are moving,
Hmm.
and and I'll give you a quick example of that. One of our big customers, like they're one of the really big, publicly traded, they're everywhere kind of guys. So they have a lot of money. They do tons of testing. They actually sent us a very detailed test on air samples in their rooms. And every once in a while, you would see like the microbial levels would spike up,
Hmm.
and then it would be normal, and then it would spike up. Every time there was a spike, they would have a note, and it would say there were 6 people in the room defoliating. There
Mm.
was 5 people in the room trimming.
Which makes
What
everything
that
fly
shows,
up everywhere, right?
yes, because there's pathogens all the time, and when people are moving, that activity jumps. And so it was a shocker to them. They realized that some of their problems and their failures wasn't just in grow rooms or dry rooms, it was in processing rooms and activity areas where people were moving. So without a doubt, your point is correct. If we always recommend, like I said, people, plants, or processing areas. Uh, you know, there's a level of risk always involved, and
Hmm.
that's our best recommendation.
For the smaller, because I know on the website you've got two units that are more or less for the growers. You've got the larger one and that the smaller one. The smaller one, I think it was saying it does like 225 square feet. Would that be one like that, say for like a home grower like myself or a lot of the viewers, where they have, say, a room that's usually around 200, 250 square feet, something like that, and they've got multiple tents in that room? Would you use one of the ProGuards on the outside of it that would protect all of the tents more or less through the pushing and pulling of your exhaust and intakes? Is that how it would work with that, or would you put one in each tent?
So yeah, the small unit we have is called the DXB Mini, and I
DXB
got it
Mini.
on my screen.
Oh, let me go over.
Um,
Yep. Okay.
it covers up to 250 square feet. It's a rectangle unit. It only weighs about 3 pounds, extremely light. You just mount it on your wall about canopy height. The air blows out the top of the unit.
Okay. At the
So the
top.
sanit
Very nice.
on this one, the air comes in through the bottom, and sanitization blows out the top.
Okay.
So 250 square feet. I would say typically in a room full of tents, you put it in the room. And like you said, the intake will bring that sanitization into each tent. These units cost $599. So for smaller areas, or smaller tents, it wouldn't make sense to put one in every tent.
Yeah.
It would
Yeah.
be, prohibitive cost wise. So what a lot of people will do is put it in that room, sanitize the room, and then obviously some of that sanitization is going to get into the tents,
And that's
and
like,
that's
and
the
where the
key.
room is, I bet, and most of our home growers and craft growers, it's probably the room that it's in is where most of the stuff is forming too, right? Because a lot of times we are keeping our grow rooms clean. It's like what you said. We are walking in, like as you can see right now, my bedroom's open right here behind me. So I'm and my computer's right here, my 3D printer's right here. Some people's circumstances, they have everything in the room that they grow in, right? And it is getting to the point where even the home growers are trying to look for products, which is why you're here today. We're looking for products that are more or less industrial level, that are known to work in millions of square feet, like you said. How many square feet are you guys in total right now?
So, I mean, it's a rough estimate, but
Okay.
it's close to 20 million square feet of cultivation. Um, we know this just as a rough because we add about a quarter of a million square feet of projects, commercial projects every month. But then there's so many other things going on that we don't even know
Yeah,
through our
totally,
resellers. So,
totally.
so
Well,
yeah, we say we got to be close to about 20 million square feet.
okay, okay. I just see Lord post a question here, and I'm actually interested in this. A lot of guys who watch are hash washers, and in the hash labs, it's at really, really low temperatures. Is there any issue when you're running at like 40 Fahrenheit in rooms? Does the device stop to work? This and that. What? Because I know as high when the humidity goes up, the device works better. What about the temperature?
Yeah, temperature's not a problem. 40, that wouldn't be an issue. The only concern would be if we had an extremely high temperature. Like we've had people say they bake their room
Ooh,
to
okay.
kill pathogens or do certain things. When I ask them and when I ask the details on that, and they start talking about 120 something, 30, at that point, maybe it could cause some damage to the machine because of the heat,
Okay.
but not at 40 or something lower. That's not a problem. It's going to work in all temperatures. So, like we would work in all, I'll give you an example to meet that
Mhm.
kind of a description. We've used in the food safety industry, we would use the same technology in food lockers. So we would pump the sanitization inside of active areas where you got food in there. What happens is it kills bacteria and even mold from developing on the meats, the produce, and the technology would actually help the shelf life of food increase sometimes two times the amount. So those are very cold, much more than lower than 40 degrees, and we would also use the technology in ice machines as well.
Very cool.
So the same thing to prevent development of mold and bacteria in ice machines, which are notorious for problems. So the temperature won't be an issue going down. It's just if it was excessive on the high side of extreme high side, I'll say, which isn't typical conditions.
Just a quick here too, because a couple of guys have mentioned that they're looking into them as you're talking about this. Would they be messaging you directly on their website or anything like that? For
Yeah, you can go to the contact us on the website. They can go to our Instagram page and DM us. I run that. I'm actually the one of the co-founders and owners. I don't think I made that comment. So more than likely they'll be getting a response from me
okay,
or one of my partners.
all right,
But yeah, through the website, through Instagram, either way, and then we'll get back to them quickly with any information.
awesome, awesome. And you just mentioned the Bud Lab too, right?
Absolutely. That's it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, that's great. That's great. Because like I said, there's a lot of guys who are getting into the small, like limited flower room, so maybe 100 plants, and then doing their own hashing. So looking for making sure that the flower room stable or sterilized, so putting one in the flower room and putting one inside the hash room, the dry room, because a lot of times the guys who are hashing, they're making sure that as soon as it's cut down, that flower is in either freezing state, in dry rooms that are ridiculously cold, or into hashing rooms that are always cold, right? They try to make sure that there's the least amount of terpene loss. And that's actually another question I have here about terpene loss is that hydrogen peroxide in growers, a lot of growers think that when you are spraying hydrogen peroxide, it is an oxidizer, right? It will oxidize the terps and the trichomes, or the trichomes, sorry. Will this device get to the point, like say if your humidity is so high and it's spiking, will it get to the point where it is producing too much that it's almost oxidizing everything now, like you're almost spraying hydrogen peroxide on your plants, or is it never going to get to that point?
It won't do that because even when it's putting out that sanitization that I showed you on the chart,
Mm-hmm,
it's still those they call it parts per million.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's how they measure concentration levels. The parts per million is still so far below anything that you would have in a spray
Oh, okay,
or
okay.
some type of fogging. I mean, if you think about it, you look around your room and it's just the air that's already in your room. We're not injecting anything additional into the room. We're taking what's in your ambient air already.
Mm-hmm.
So that concentration's already there.
Awesome.
we're just restructuring those molecules in a way where now they can actually kill pathogens.
Mm-hmm.
So terpenes is not an issue. In fact, up in Canada actually, we've had some very extensive studies done. The reason why Canada was beneficial for us, as you would know, from living up there, they have a very restrictive, federally system, you know.
Yeah, everything through
Um,
Health Canada.
and everybody's got to have a quality assurance, a quality control. They got to
Yep.
have all this stuff. So we had several companies do their own testing, run it side by side in rooms with and without our technology, go through the whole grow, harvest, dry, everything process, and the results show that it didn't impact terpenes. There was no impact on it. Now, we also knew that just from qualitatively, from having our technology in so many facilities or home growers, that we didn't have any issues. So if the units are used properly, they're going to be fine. You know, now if somebody puts one of our bigger units, a 500 square foot unit in a 5 by 5 tent, you know, obviously like anything in
Yeah,
excess, it's not
true,
good.
true.
And so we actually put a little disclaimer on the, or a little note, I'll say, on all the units we sell. We explain if you're using something in an undersized room, you might want to put it on a timer so that you create the appropriate amount of sanitization.
I was gonna ask about
And
timers and stuff because that was something too because you could have it running for 10 hours if you're over or undersized. Sorry.
yeah, so an example, like say the mini, the 250 square foot unit, if it's going in a 10 by 10 room, you know, every room's different, every grower's
Hmm.
different, airflow's different. We've got people that run it 24/7 and they say, I never turn it off. It's fantastic. I don't have any issues. We have other people, they say, it smells like a hospital. It smells overwhelming.
Okay.
Well, it's creating more sanitization than the room can process. So it's kind of building up. And
Yeah.
it just
Okay.
smells like maybe, you know, that oxidation smells almost like you're bleaching the room or something. Well, it's because we're creating probably, it's in a room one third the size that it can handle. So in that case, maybe run it on a timer. Run it for 3 hours on, 3 hours off. Let it cycle through, and you're given enough sanitization without it kind of overwhelming the room.
Hmm.
And it's not even that it's necessarily damaging plants. It's just the smell. It's if you're
Yeah.
walking in there, it just feels like like I said, bleached your house, and it just got an overwhelming smell. For a
Yeah.
few
It's
minutes, it's not a big deal.
okay, interesting. Interesting. Lord asked another question here actually about UVC. He's already currently using UVC through his HVAC. Would you be removing the UVC already and replacing it with the system, or can you use them both at the same time?
You can use them both at the same time. It will not impact what you currently have. So it can work in conjunction.
Okay.
Um, so if you already have UVC, keep it. I mean, it's an extra line of defense.
Hmm.
The difference, if it came down to one or the other, if you like were looking to purchase a UVC or our technology, the difference in that is that question that you asked earlier, active, passive.
Okay.
So UV is a passive technology in and of itself, the way it's used in air ducts or devices typically, the UV is trying to kill the spore. The only way UV can kill a spore, there's a couple of variables that it needs. It needs what we call a line of sight, meaning it has to radiate directly on that mold spore within a couple of inches of it. The other thing is it needs an exposure time. So it needs to radiate on that spore maybe a couple of seconds.
Hmm.
So typically UVC is going to be put up in your air ducts and it's going to be put behind your filter or your coil. So when the mold or mildew or bacteria gets caught up in the air duct, then the UV is radiating on this static pathogen and it kills
Hmm.
it. But the
Okay.
problem with this, as your line of defense, is the mold and mildew is typically in the room first.
Hmm.
So if you've got mold in your room or mildew, we'll just say mildew, the last thing you want is for that mildew to fly across your room.
To get to that
In
device
order,
to kill it. Exactly. Now it's
yes,
harvesting everywhere.
you've cross contaminated other areas and you haven't really solved the problem. It's just, it's just, re, you know, it's spreading the
Hmm.
problem.
It's spreading it. Yeah.
So where the active solution is going to kill the spores in that room, and some of it will actually go up in the air ducts as well. So you can use them in conjunction, no problem. If you're looking at one or the other, clearly our technology is an active solution, and it's going to be much more effective at sanitizing the room and keeping it a cleaner baseline for better results.
Very cool. Very cool. No, 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 that's awesome. Another question too about CO2. We were looking at the chart earlier with the temperature or the humidity and stuff, and you were talking about VPD. People who run CO2 can run a higher VPD, usually higher temperature, which usually means higher humidity. So when you're running CO2 with this device, would it almost be running like more efficient if there's a CO2, if there's like CO2 being injected in the room?
Yeah, well, I think just because of the humidity levels, it's going to cause the sanitization to adjust. I wouldn't say it would be more efficient. You know, we get asked people, what humidity should I run my room at since you use humidity? Our response is always run whatever you feel like running, whatever's best for your grow environment.
Mm-hmm.
Our system will plug right into it and adapt to that environment. So don't increase your humidity to get more sanitization. Run the humidity level that you feel is going to get you your greatest result based off of your growing system. So whether that's a higher or lower, middle, it doesn't matter on our side. But so I wouldn't say it makes it more effective running it with CO2, but we do work with just tons of people that run CO2. So it's not an issue whatsoever.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, now I got a question here, and this is probably going to be the hardest question of the day. All right, this is going to be the
All right.
one that it's going to stump you here, I think. All right. If I was gonna make you a sandwich and I could only put one sauce on it, would it be Miracle Whip or mayo?
It'd be mayo. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't like Miracle Whip.
All right. All right. Okay. Next question. Next question.
And that's kind of like a loaded question, though, because it's kind of the same, but Miracle Whip mayo, no, no bueno.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. I think you're with the chat. I'm a big Miracle Whip guy. I think most of the chat's in mayo, and they hate that I like Miracle Whip better than mayo. So I was looking on your website too, and I don't know if we touched over it a little bit. The bipolar ion. What is that?
Yeah, so this is one of the game-changing pieces of our product, actually. So I'm going to go to a different slide here.
Okay.
And so one of the things, so we have that photocatalytic process.
Yeah.
The other thing we add is we have a proprietary ionization technology. It creates a lot of positive and negative ions. In fact, let me go back here. It creates a lot of positive and negative ions. So a lot of people say, I've used ionization units and they don't work or they're bad or not the same technology. It's a completely different process we use, but we create positive and negative ions. The reason why this is effective in our product, think of it like this. Every pathogen in your room, mold, mildew, bacteria,
Hmm.
it has some type of an electrical charge. It has either got a positive electrical charge on it or a negative electrical charge. Everything in the room has some type of electrical charge. These ions are released from the machine and they're actually drawn to the pathogen like a magnet.
Okay.
When they come in contact with with the pathogen, they basically release that little bit of ion energy, and it punctures a hole in the outer cell wall of the pathogen. Um, Here's a slide I just put up. It kind of shows what a spore is like.
Okay.
Every spore has like an outer membrane or a protective shield on it.
Okay.
And so these ions are kind of clumped together, and it's almost like a lightning bolt. It comes in contact with it, and it punctures a little hole in the spore. And these are cells that have been exposed to the ions. So you can see on the left
Hmm.
um, and the right, after they've been exposed, these ions are kind of like obliterated. They're like just like a pinhole.
Yeah.
It disrupts their RNA and their DNA, which kills it instantly. So these little cells, mold, mildew, bacteria, they're basically being actively destroyed throughout the room. And so it's a very effective solution because we're using that hydroperoxide vapor
Mhm.
which is very effective, but
Yep.
we're also using ionization. And we learned this actually in the biotech industry. There's a lot of antibiotic resistant viruses and bacterias out there. They basically build a resistance to chemicals. So let's say they can start building a resistance to hydrogen peroxide or oxidizers. They can't build a resistance to energy. So the ions
Mm.
actually will negate that defense system they have and help reduce and eliminate those spores. So in conjunction, when they work together, they work fantastic because the ions actually make the H2O2 have a longer dwell time. That's what we call it. It stays in the room a little bit longer and it
Hmm.
actually delivers it to the pathogens a little more effectively.
And
So
like
they
inside
work
and out almost, right? Because it's poked the
correct.
hole, right?
Yeah, it's almost like it's a two-pronged approach,
Hmm.
but they work together. And so, and we didn't know this years ago. We used to use the photocatalytic process in one environment, and we would use in energy in high humidity environments, and we would use the ions in low humidity environments. And then when we started getting into very large cannabis facilities, we started thinking, how can we improve the efficiency? What if we added it together? And so what we found is we were kind of shocked. What we found is when we combined the technology together,
Hmm.
it actually multiplied the output. It's like they synergistically made each other
Oh.
more effectively. So this was a test that was done by a third-party company. We had nothing to do with it. It's a company that trains mold remediation companies. They do a lot of work with the EPA,
Yeah.
FEMA. After hurricanes, if there's a hurricane cleanup, they're usually training the on-site staff. They tested our technology along with a lot of others, and they sent us these results. What they found is we were creating about 13 times the amount of sanitization
Wow.
as the other products. It blew us away. We didn't know this. We weren't comparing ourselves against others, but what we were finding out from customers is that other products that were being used in the industry were failing. They weren't really working well. Well, this is why, because a lot of those products are used in homes. They're used in an office. They don't create enough sanitization to put it in a 100,000 square foot greenhouse. Or,
Hmm.
you know, we work with facilities that are 4,000 square foot rooms with three-level high racks. You can imagine the microclimates and
Yeah.
all the LED lights in there. There's no way this competitive product can create enough sanitization to have an impact on that
On the, yeah,
environment.
you're gonna have to use 13 times more of them, right?
Yeah,
And
and
they're
it
probably
wouldn't
even more
even
money too.
more money. What we have found is most of the products out there are about 3 times to 5 times the amount of money. We've also found that a lot of them are big and bulky. They're not 2 or 3 pounds or 5 pounds. They're 40. They look like dehumidifiers.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they use a lot of energy.
Do you,
Sometimes.
speaking of that, actually going back, do you guys have any floor units? I know you were mentioning all wall mounts. Is there any floor units that you do have?
No, no, we really don't.
No.
We don't, yeah, because we really want the technology coming above the canopy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want we want it blowing above it and into the canopy um, for better air distribution. So we've never built anything for the floor.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes, yeah, because like just like CO2, right? You want to make sure your CO2 is dumping at the top, so it's falling down because it's heavier in the air, and so
And
many.
that's the same with the technology is heavier than the air, so it's going to settle in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. So, in say in a room where you are having multiple grow rooms, you're gonna want to have that thing up as high in your main room as possible, so it's falling down and going through the intakes more or less.
Yeah, that's correct.
You wouldn't want it just eye level on the wall. You want it as high
That's
as you can
correct.
get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
above the tents.
Yeah, where you can
Absolutely.
get it. Very interesting. Is there any retailers in Canada or anything, or you guys? Is it directly all through you guys?
Currently, we're doing mostly direct. We've had a couple retailers. We're in discussions with a couple of really large groups,
Awesome.
but we've always been a little bit protective on the technology, only because the one thing that we really care about is like this conversation. We don't want a lot of times what we find with retailers is they don't educate the customer,
Yep.
and so the customer says, "Hey, I've got powdery mildew. What do you have?" And they go, here's something and they give it to them and they make it sound like it's an end all solution. And
Exactly. They don't have this face to face with you explaining everybody how this works, right? Now you
yeah,
will, though. Now you will.
well, what we don't want, honestly, what we don't want is we don't want anybody to have an expectation that's unrealistic. We want them
Exactly.
to know what it does, what it doesn't do, how it works. And so we've had to do a lot of educating over the years
Hmm.
where now people are starting to understand the technology or see it a lot more. So there's a lot more knowledge. So even if the retail guy doesn't do a good job, there's more resources out there like this conversation
Hmm.
that can really help people make a very educated decision. And honestly, that's our goal. We want them to make an
Totally.
educated decision. We're not trying to make a quick sale and disappear. We've been doing this for 9+ years. We actually got started in the Canadian market,
Mhm.
in 2013 when all those producers couldn't pass without irradiating.
Exactly.
That's when they started calling us. And so we understand the market
So
in that
you guys were
regard. And
like the start of the ending of the using radiation here in Canada.
we'd like to take credit, but we won't take all the credit. No,
Yeah.
but I think we definitely we were helpful in helping some. And then obviously what's crazy is some didn't care, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, their
Some didn't
standard
care.
in their SOPs, no, it is just to irradiate no matter what. And I just saw a report yesterday that says that there's studies out there that show maybe 20 to 30% loss in terpenes when you irradiate. And I guess those studies are all over the place and there's different numbers, but I
Hmm.
don't think there's any debate that it impacts the end quality.
Yeah, 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 totally. Going back to availability here, Europe. I know you mentioned to me Europe. Are you guys in the Europe market? Do you have any stores out there that carry them, or can you get them out
We,
that
we,
way?
yes, we can. We've got a distributor out there. So right now they're handling all the distribution to any of the countries, the UK throughout the EU. Um, and we're working on distribution points, but we've got one main distributor that can ship direct very easily. So
And
yeah,
they
we're
just
closing that gap.
contact you to get all of that.
Yeah, I'll make the connection. I'll get them
Awesome.
in contact with the European distributor, and then the same thing goes with like other areas of the South America. We're starting to work on getting distribution down there.
Nice.
But
South
South
Africa.
Africa,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, we've got a distributor in South Africa. So slowly but surely, as our brand is starting to get seen, we're trying to make it so we don't have to ship a six hundred
Hmm.
dollar unit over to South Africa and
Totally.
shipping's.
Well, and the duties too, right? The duties is probably the killer out that way. How about a
Yeah.
unit that's smaller than your mini now? Something that would be for more or less grow tents, 4x4, 5x5, 10x10, stuff like that.
We don't have a smaller unit at the moment, so that's something down the road we're exploring to see what the viability is of it,
Mhm.
and the effectiveness of what we can produce. But right now, the mini is our smaller unit. When we started out, 9+ years ago, it was all direct to commercial. It
Yeah.
was, that was our market. About 2.5 years ago, when we got on Instagram, that's really when we started working with the home grower. So we came up with the mini. So we're continually evolving, we're continually developing new stuff, and so that could be down in the road a little bit.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, I've got maybe three more questions left, and then I can let you get on with your morning because I think when we started the interview, I think it was still nighttime over there. Now I can finally see the sun. I'm just joking with you. Okay. So we talked about shipping worldwide. Yes, yes, yes. Going back to sanitizing and stuff, I just want to touch base on this. I think you might have went over it, but this is important for some. Uh, it cleans the air and it cleans surfaces as well because it's the molecules or the hydrogen peroxide and stuff's in the air and it's landing on the surfaces. So it would be also a dual sanitization type thing, right?
Yeah, the air is important, but obviously what's in the air is going to wind up on a surface at some point. So
Okay.
it can definitely help surface contaminants. So it can kill spores that might be residing on the plant surface. It could kill spores that might be on a light ballast or a bench. Anywhere that sanitization is flowing, it all comes down to airflow. If you got good airflow, it's going to move those molecules throughout the room. And so it's going to be able to get in all those little nooks and crannies of the room and help, get some of those surface spores as well.
Awesome. someone was mentioning here they have an RV around 300 square feet. Would it be able to sanitize an RV? Because RVs, as and any trailer more or less, kind of are a little moldy when you go through the winters and stuff, right? Would that help with that?
Yeah, it would. Definitely, you can put our unit in an RV, a home, any area like that. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You kind of got static air building up
Mm-hmm.
in there,
Mm-hmm.
stale or not as fresh. So yeah, we've got products that can go for that as well, of course.
Awesome. So yeah, you've got products for the grow room, products for the HVAC system for the home, products for the commercial, the restaurants. Like, that's awesome. Like, no, it's a sweet product. As soon as I saw you guys on the Instagram, and you guys are doing a good job, and you said you did the Instagram, you do a good job at the reposting. I really like that stuff. I like seeing it shows that you're really involved in wanting to push community aspect, which a lot of us here in TBL and a lot of growers really respect. Because the community, a lot of times the industry kind of forgets about the community, the people who are out there, who are purchasing the products and stuff. Maybe not the commercial side, right? Um, uh, but no, this was an extremely interesting interview, or sesh, or whatever you want to call this. You answered every single one of my questions. Anybody in the chat before we go? Does anybody in the chat have any questions that we might have missed? We're talking about ProGuard right now. Is it just a fancy air purifier? Oh, come on. Did you not listen once? Does he smoke? What's your favorite strain?
What was the question?
What's your favorite strain?
So I don't smoke.
You
I've got
don't?
a bronchial. No, I've got a bronchial problem,
Okay.
and so I have to. It's something that happened when I was younger.
Okay.
So I've got some deficiencies with what I can ingest.
Oh,
It's a long story, but I
interesting.
can't, but I can't
Interesting. Interesting.
ingest anything.
Interesting.
I take some CBD products and different things, but it has to be all oral and
Hmm.
different types like that because of the compromised situation with my lungs.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Okay. I got two questions here actually. Is there any noticeable lights in the products that blink or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the UV light, it does emit a glow. It's a light glow.
Uh,
So we get asked that. People will say, "Do I have to turn it off through the photo period? Will it impact?" So here's the good thing. We've had it scientifically tested. What we found is that the UV light is not in the intensity or the spectrum
100%.
that can cause any kind of problems in the dark cycle. So we know that from scientific testing. We've had PhD horticulturists, agronomists, and whatever you want to call them. They did that testing in a very scientific way. Now,
Hmm.
the other way we know is that we have, like I said, thousands of customers, small, big, medium, all sizes. Some of these facilities, I'll give you a greenhouse example. We might have 40 units hanging above the canopy.
Hmm.
They run these units 24/7, no issues whatsoever.
Hmm.
So the UV light it's not in the intensity. We're not using the UV light like a lot of others. It's a glow, but it won't have any kind of impact on the flower in the
Okay.
dark cycle.
Awesome, awesome. I got one with organic soil here from Alir. Is there any effect with organic soils? People who use, say, the large no-till setups where there might be lots of
Yeah.
microbes and stuff. Is there any with the surface cleaning? Will that affect it at all?
No, no impact. We work with some of the largest commercial organic soil growers you can think of, some up in Canada, some in the US, and then obviously small ones. The technology doesn't penetrate soil, it doesn't penetrate water, it's air and surface, and it's not going to go down into the soil and start attacking the microbes. So that's not an issue at all. In fact, like I said, we've got so much examples of that. It's not an issue. You don't have to worry about that. It won't impact your positive microbes, your beneficials, I should say, that you're using in your
How
soil.
about bugs? Any issues with bugs? Will it cause the bugs to leave
No,
the room?
yeah, we get asked that a lot. I can't say that we're going to have any positive impact on reducing. It's definitely not going to kill bugs. People have asked us, will it help with pests? The one thing I've been told, and I don't know how true this is, I can't verify it, and I'll never claim it, but if we're killing mold, sometimes some of the pests, that's what their food source is mold and mildew, fungal. So possibly we can eliminate the food source, which could maybe reduce their viability. But I would never buy the technology or try to sell it to you for that purpose.
Yeah.
that might be a side benefit that you achieve. I've
Okay.
been told that once or twice, but like I said, I'll never make that claim, and I would never suggest buying it for that.
Yeah, it makes the room almost the environment unappealing for the bugs. It maybe right, like just and it might make
Potentially.
sense. Like you see in no-till grows, if you add too much cover crop, you start to get a lot of bugs, and then you have to offset it with beneficial bugs, right? And I can definitely see some of these bugs are feeding off of plants, molds, other bugs. I can totally see that. And then if you're removing the molds, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. All right. All right. So you answered every question. Like I said, you answered all the chat's questions, guys. You guys want to put some love in the chat? You guys want to put some thanks in the chat for Mike here for absolutely filling up my brain with so much knowledge about this product. I know you're gonna be getting some messages. If you guys are interested, just send them a message on Instagram. Send them a message on their website. I actually have their website here. Let me just paste this inside. There you go. There's their website right there. But no, this was good. This was good. I love the slideshow. I love the it worked good. The quality was good.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And if maybe you can post the Instagram account, that'd be great. I don't know
Yeah.
if they don't, in case somebody doesn't have that, but it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Anytime. Like I said, we've got more products coming down the road, and if I can ever be of help to you guys, I definitely want to do that. So look forward to hopefully meeting some of your followers and subscribers, and it was a pleasure on my side.
Yeah, 100%. I know people are going to be messaging you. And if you guys do, just make sure you guys message, say, the Bud Lab. I think this is their Instagram right here. There it is. I just posted it in the chat there as well. Yeah, it's nice that you guys are worldwide because TBL is worldwide. It's nice that you guys are pushing community because that's exactly what TBL is a cannabis growing community. And I'm thankful for that you were here for this morning.
You know what? Let me throw this out. If
Yep.
anybody reaches out and directly and they just mention the Bud Lab, let them know, especially through Instagram, because I'll see it first.
Yep.
If they end up buying any of our products, we'll make sure we get them a discount on anything they buy. So just as a thankful note to you and your followers, like I said, if they mention the Bud Lab, I'll make sure we get them a nice discount on anything they purchase now or down the road. As long as they make that mention, we'll be able to take care of them.
That's awesome. Guys, can we get some love in the chat for that one? Holy smokes. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. Happy Thursday to you. And now that you are in the Bud Lab, you'll be able to see all the information. I'm live every single day. We do this all the time. So if you ever see me on the Twitch when you're scrolling, you can say, "Oh, I was there." You'll find this video here on Twitch, and I'll put it up on YouTube. You'll get the links in your Instagram DMs. But
Excellent.
thank you for joining, and I'll see you in the DMs then. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.